Hello and welcome to SMPD, the podcast where we look back at the cartoons that shaped our childhood. I am Chris Bolton. With me, as always, my cartoon companion, Mr. Mark Williams.
Hello.
And we are sort of kicking off spooky season a little bit early. Like, we're in October now, so I think it's fair to say that we can dive in. And you know we love Halloween on the network. We love a bit of spooky season. But as always, we have a theme for you. And there was a show that kind of fits Halloween, but just didn't fit our theme this year, and it didn't fit our theme last year. So we've decided, you know what? Fuck it. We're just going to have an early run into spooky season this year, and we're going to look back at Disney's Gargoyles.
Yeah, now this one, I mean, it's been kicking around our list for a while. I think it's been kicking around our list since the start.
Oh, time, yeah.
Now, I was aware of the show, and I sort of had a fairly loose memory of what it was. Wasn't really that familiar with it. And then when I put it on, so I think I put it on Saturday, it might have been Sunday, and within about 3 minutes, I don't remember the show at all, but fuck me. Why did I not watch this show?
It's fucking... I'm not going to bury the lead. It's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing for me is that it would have come at a time. I mean, it was out in '94, so probably here in '95. Now that was about the time where other weekend I was playing football and playing rugby, so I didn't have time to watch stuff in the mornings before I went out. So I possibly would have seen like the odd bit here and there, just because if there was a weekend I wasn't playing, or or we didn't have a game or whatever, then TV would be on. But I wasn't so super familiar with it. And then I only watched the 5-part at the start of the first season, just because time dictated otherwise, and kids and family and work and stuff. But yeah, within the opening 5 minutes, I was absolutely hooked.
Yeah, I mean, I've watched the entire first season. I've made a start in the second season as well. I am going to watch it all, which I've said that about the last few shows that we've done, but like this one, I'm binge watching this.
Oh, I'm doing that this week.
I have not been able to stop watching this show, which is actually part of the reason it's on the list. I also have a bit of a weird relationship with this in that I didn't watch it a lot when it was out. I went to Disney World for the second time around about 1997-ish, late 96, early 97, I think. And that was the first exposure that I had to Gargoyles, because this was a CITV show over here. Now, as previously discussed on the pod, I didn't watch a lot of CITV. I was more of a BBC guy. And, by this point, I was definitely Nickelodeon, like, if anything at all, because I'm 15, 16 at this point. And I just remember walking around Disney World, and it must have been what I now know is the third season, was being just, there was promo stuff everywhere. And that's one thing Disney are really, really good at, especially on property, is just plastering their stuff all over the buses, all over the billboards. So I'm seeing Gargoyles everywhere, and I'm seeing merch for it. And again, as we've discussed at length on some of the other shows, I love monsters. I have a thing for monsters and monster movies and monster stories. It's something that appeals to me greatly. So I'm looking at all this fucking artwork, and it was the logo with Goliath on it. I'm like, what is this show? This looks awesome. So I managed to find some of it in syndication on the American TV while we were out there. And I watched a couple of episodes, absolutely loved it. Came back home, and I was like, right. And this is in the days before we were torrenting shit and what have you, right? I came back home and I had my Skybox and the TV, right? So I'm spinning around it looking for this fucking Gargoyles. And I eventually fall upon it on CITV. However, the show that I was then watching on CITV, by the time I'd found it, and we're months and months removed by this point, was a very different show to what I watched in America. And I never understood why until we've started doing this episode, when I actually now know that the third season is completely removed and isn't actually considered canon by anybody. So that's what had happened. I'd obviously caught early shows in syndication when I was in America. I came back, watched the ones on CITV, and actually it wasn't all that great. I still enjoyed it because, again, it's playing to everything that I like, and I love the way this show looks as well. So I was all about it. But it never really grabbed me then, because I'd seen more of what we now know is actually called Gargoyles, Goliaths, whatever it is, Goliath's Chronicles, as opposed to the actual show, which was the show that I'd first fallen in love with when I was out in Disney World. So yeah, as soon as we started putting this list together of cartoons to remember, I think this has always just been trundling around in the back of my mind of like, what was it about Gargoyles that I missed when I came back? So I chucked it on the list. And since Disney Plus has launched and it's been on there, it's been on my watch list of like, right, I need to get into Gargoyles.
Yeah.
So as soon as we put it on, like we decided, we put it on the schedule and it was coming up, I dove straight in. And that was we've had this on the schedule for about a month or more now because,
we actually start planning now.
Yeah, we do plan in advance, and I've been on holiday and stuff. So we had to get our schedule sorted. And so I've watched a lot more of it than I usually would. But even were we watching this with the weeks lead in, I think like from episode 1, like you say, from the opening narration, where you get Goliath's opening narration, I'm like, all right, this is fucking cool. I'm in. But then when you actually get into it, when it grabs you, that opening 5-parter especially, like it's a TV movie basically.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, I kind of likened it to all the sort of the Marvel stuff, the DC stuff we had over the last couple of years. It's an origin story, but it's done in such a way that you're actually engaged in it, and you're not going, right, I know where this is going, and no, he's going to become Batman, he's going to become Spider-Man, whatever. You're watching it thinking, what the fuck is this? And it looks really atmospheric. I mean, it owes a lot to the Batman animated series.
Oh, very much so.
In terms of the palette and things like that. It's very visually similar to that. But you're watching it and you're thinking, actually, there's some really fucking high concept stuff here as well. There's a lot borrowed from Shakespeare. There's a lot of there's a lot of stuff in there. You're thinking, this is in a kids' cartoon from the early '90s. This doesn't belong here, but fuck me, they've really stuck the landing. And I think that juxtaposition you get, so right at the start where you get the pre-credits bit where you've got Detective Marzo down on the street, and then you get the rocks falling and the explosions overhead, all this sort of stuff. You're thinking, fuck me, right? Okay, this is really going somewhere. And, you get these sort of the end of that section where what has claws sharp enough to drag to make a mark in solid rock, and then the next thing you get, you go back to 10th century Scotland, and you're like, right, okay, we can forget about all that now. And by the time you get into that story, you do actually forget about all the modern day stuff, and you're so invested in it. And like from right at the beginning, though, you've got the Viking invaders, and there's the fact that they're outsiders, even though it's their castle, and they've been it's their cliffs, and they've been on these cliffs for centuries, and the humans have come and built a castle, and but they're outsiders, they're not welcome, all this sort of stuff. There's a lot to unpack in that first episode, but actually,
masses.
I mean, what's an episode? 20 minutes, if that.
Yeah, 20, 25. They're not very long.
You get to that point, and so that first 5 is just, it's to be continued, and you're, oh fuck, right, okay, where am I going next? And it's so well pitched, it's so well paced, and then it doesn't really do it justice now because obviously you're binging it and you're watching it and you're just watching it back to back to back. But at the time where you'd have had one a week, and you get the previously on Gargoyles, just like you get with syndicated television, and you'd get with proper network television. They're throwing you straight into it, and throwing them that sort of dichotomy of the old world and the present day. And straight away, I need to see this. Where's this going? And without even hesitating. So I think it was Sunday I put this on, and literally I sat down and I was just like, right, okay, I'll watch a couple. I hadn't done any reading, I hadn't done any research, so I didn't realize it was a multi-part at the start. I should have known because that's what Disney used to do. But yeah, I put the first one on, and I thought I'll watch a couple just to get enough sort of familiarity with it. I can talk about it. Next, and I was like, fuck, right, okay. And I only stopped because everybody came home. And then I couldn't hear the TV. I was like, oh, right, okay then.
Yeah, I mean, and that continues, certainly all the way through the first season as well. Like it is one continuous narrative arc, which is something that we laud shows when we get a show that has a continuous narrative, especially in a cartoon, we're always like it's something that we should really praise. But what this actually does, and you've sort of alluded to it already, this is masterfully crafted. Like the writing in this is absolutely. Like it hits all the right beats at all the right times, and that opening, you're dead right. Had we cold opened in medieval Scotland, particularly because we want kids to watch this as well. This is not a kids show, all right. There are elements which make it child friendly, perhaps.
Yeah,
but
it's very dark though, and I think there are elements to it as well. I mean, if you think of the timing,
it's fucking violent as well. Never mind
it is
dark. Like it's ridiculously
and it's not
violent.
sort of stylized. It's not stylized violence either. I mean, right at the start of the first episode, where one of them catches a sword and you see his hand bleeding.
Yeah,
and they're not indestructible, and all of a sudden they start pelting them with arrows and shit. But I mean, this has come at a time. This postdates things like Turtles, which again, that was insanely popular at this point. It'd gone on to do what it was doing. Power Rangers was similar sort of time. So all of a sudden you had these shows which did have these slightly larger narratives, slightly bigger narratives. But of all the stuff we've rewatched and or watched in the first instance, in this case, you look at this and you think, "Fuck me, this is an actual narrative arc." With so many strands and so many characters, and no, it's not just a case of, right, this is Goliath's story. This is right. Well, we've got the origins of all the other characters. The other characters weren't important enough to have names, and then they gave themselves names, or they realized that in the modern world they needed names. They needed some sort of identifier. And there's a really nice gag in there where I think it's Hudson is talking to Martha, and he's saying, "Does the sky have a name? Does the river have a name?"
Yeah,
and he said, "Well, the sky is the sky." That's already its name. So it's a really nice joke. And then she said, "Well, the river's called the Hudson," and then obviously he takes that name for himself. So I mean, there's some really nice work there, some really clever work there. But it's setting up the fact that it's not just going to be a one and done show. It's not going to be episode of the week. It's not going to be monster of the week. It's going to be a show which is it's taking itself as seriously as something that Power Rangers did, where they said, right, we're going to have that arc with the Green Ranger. We're going to have this overarching villain, but actually we're going to feed into that and keep coming back to that in different ways every week. And I think for me, a lot of the stuff we've watched, and certainly the Disney stuff we've watched, it's all good and it all holds up, but it doesn't have those through lines. This does. I mean, the biggest problem I had with this is that it really needs a remaster.
Yes, it's looking rough on Disney
looking
Plus.
very. I mean, it's looking as though they've gone, right. We've got the property. We'll put it on Disney Plus because we will put everything on there. But we're not going to go out of our way to upscale it and put it in HD and recolorize it and all the rest of it. They've gone, right, this is it. This is how it's going on. And as a result, then watching on HD TV or a computer monitor or even a tablet, you're looking and thinking, fuck, that's really grainy. It's it doesn't do it justice. And I think that's my biggest problem with even the animation is it's very slick. You don't get any glitches. You don't get repeated or drop frames. It's all very slick and very smooth. And I think Disney have let it down by letting it degrade in the way they have and not putting it out there in a format that actually does it justice.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I had done quite a lot of reading on this because I completely just fell madly in love with this show. I've gone way down the rabbit hole, so I've done all of the reading with it as well. So we can get into the way it's been treated by Disney, actually, because it does tie into a lot of things that we've spoke about on our other Disney shows as well. But yeah, just circling back around, as I say, with that opening and just the way that this is structured. Had we cold opened in Scotland, you're not going to grab a child's attention because that's fucking olden times. So
well, that's it. With the greatest respect, kids are stupid. They're not going to be able to relate to that. They might have a passing interest if there's a dragon or something like that, but realistically, they'll be going, right, there's monsters in a castle on a hill. Yeah, whatever. Exactly. Whereas actually, you set this in present day New York, and there's a firefight going on. You've got explosions at the top of a spooky tower with clouds all around it. Oh fuck, what's this?
And it's the golden rule as well. We talked about it at length on Game of Moans, but the golden rule of opening a scene is that you start in the middle of a scene, and that's exactly what they do. We get Goliath's opening narrative just to set us up and tell us what the world is, and the credits. But then we're in the middle of this battle in New York, this firefighting, this stuff falling off buildings. We don't know what the hell's happening, and then we flash back. Then we get our origin story, and then we come full circle. So it's very well structured for that. It grabs your attention straight away, then introduces these characters to you. And then, we go on this perfectly paced 5-part narrative arc, which then concludes, but then the rest of the season carries those through lines. Xanatos just continues to appear throughout the season, albeit in jail for the next 2 or 3 episodes. And it does that thing which so often I think we credit Buffy for popularizing, and I'm guilty of that more than anybody, God knows. But that is just like having actual continuity in TV shows, which was something that was very rare before this time in the early 90s. And Buffy was one of the first sort of episodic shows that really did that, where actions had consequences. And, if somebody, for instance, got an arm broken one week, then they would be in a plaster cast the next week. It doesn't just magically heal itself. And this does that. Xanatos goes to jail, so he has to fucking stay in jail. And his assistant has to look after his estate, which means the Gargoyles can kick around there for a couple of weeks before actually, oh shit, Xanatos is out. Now we're going to lose the castle. you know, and there's an absolutely just, this is one of the best animated episodes I have ever seen. There is an episode about halfway through season 1, which starts off innocently enough. Probably slightly spoilers for you know, because I'm a bit ahead of you, but we've got to talk about this because it blew me away. I'm putting it up there with like Heart of Glass. Okay, it blew me away. Heart of Ice, sorry. So it starts innocently enough with Broadway's really into cinema now, so he breaks into a theater and he's getting obsessed with westerns, with John Wayne and westerns, Clint Eastwood. And so then he goes to visit Mazza, who says, "Oh, make yourself comfortable, and I'll grill you up some steaks," because of course he likes food. Yes, this is a knockabout episode. Yeah, no. At the same time, she's just shaking down a mob boss over an illegal arms deal that he's doing with Xanatos, right? So she's got a hard on for taking down this mob boss. So we've got all of our elements there. And then they execute Chekhov's gun perfectly, because he goes in and she's a cop, she's off duty, her gun's just lying around. He's just seen a Western. So he picks it up, starts playing around with the gun. Of course, it goes off. I just, the way they frame this as well, because she's got it back to him the whole time in the kitchen, making this steak, and we're on his frame, and the gun goes off, and you just hear the plate shatter. And then they hold on him. And then his expression changes. And then you hear him calling a name, and then you just see her lying there in a pool of blood. Now, this is one of our main characters, mind you, who then spends the rest of the episode in ICU fighting for a life, whilst he's now carrying all of the guilt of doing this, whilst Goliath's got the wrong end of the stick because he thinks the mob boss has performed a hit on her, so they're going out to take the mob boss down. And there's all of these elements coming together to eventually deliver what is, in the fucking very early 90s, mind you, a strong flag in the sand gun control episode in a children's show that has again been executed perfectly. But then not only that, the next couple of episodes, yes, she recovers, of course, but the next couple of episodes she's on fucking crutches because, and then they give her a partner because now the chief doesn't think she can be trusted on her own because she's being shot. So obviously people are out for her. So actions have consequences in this show in a way that so few shows allow them to.
Yeah, and I mean, I've not seen that one. I've been reading ahead. And I think that's only sort of 2 or 3 ahead of what where I've got to. So I have read the synopses of the episodes in the season. I had read that, and I was going to bring that one up because, as you said, it's a very firm flag in the sand, and it was at a time where you did see a lot in the news and a lot of sort of more sort of high end kid, sort of higher age kid shows, and sort of the tween and the early teen shows, and they did gun episodes where little Jesse had a gun, or little Jesse's friend found his father's gun and he was playing with it and it went off, and so nobody got shot, but they could have been hurt. So this was at a time where you did get a lot of that. You did have these there were a lot of accidental shootings in the US where kids found daddy's gun. And it was loaded because clearly the bad men are all going to break in and rob us and murder us in our sleep. So I need a pistol under my pillow. And so this was at that sort of time. So I mean, it's, as you say, it's a very clear flag in the sand that actually, I need to expect something like that from Disney. That if there's a point to be made, they'll make it. But how well it's executed and how carefully it's done, generally, it's not ever done that well. So I mean, once we finish here, I'll be going back and watching probably the rest of the season. But yeah, it's there was an awful lot to be said in the first couple of episodes that I did watch, and the whole thing of there was some very classist things. There was some overtly racist themes into it, and it's very much a case of, right, this is a kids show, but we've had Turtles, which had a bit of an edge to it. We've had Batman, which had a bit of an edge to it. We need to do something that's a bit less Disney. We don't want Mickey Mouse in something. We don't want another Chip and Dale, which Rescue Rangers had some slightly more nefarious characters to it, but by and large it was still a kids show. Whereas this, they've kind of gone, right, okay, it's a kids show, and it's and the third season they did move to, when they bought ABC, they stuck it in their Saturday morning block. But I mean, when this first aired, the second season, I think the only reason it declined in popularity because it was on directly against the news with the OJ trial. So it was never going to compete with that, because even if you've got kids who are desperate to watch this show, fuck off, I want to watch OJ Simpson go to jail.
Yeah, exactly.
So
So yeah.
so I mean, it was that it was that sort of time of night that they were showing it as well. So it was like directly before the news, so people were on the other channel and stuff like that. But it was they went out of their way to make a product which they said which was right. Okay, it's not your average fluffy kids show.
Oh, it's definitely not.
Kids need to learn about the world, and we can do it in a way that's it's not real. So gargoyles don't come to life during the night. So we're setting it in a world which is
that we know of.
I don't sleep. I'd have seen them by now. But it's that thing. We can set it in an unrealistic world, so it's not happening. It's not real. But actually, there's some shit you need to know, kids. Life ain't always fair. Life ain't always good. Not everybody is what they seem. Some people will pretend to be your friend. Some people will try and make out they're helping you, but actually they're using all this sort of stuff that's in there, and these themes that kids wouldn't have seen before.
No, it's got all the hallmarks, and we will come back actually to the Disney of the time and how the show performed and where it came from, because as I said, I've done the reading and it ties into a direct interest of mine that we've talked about at length on our other Disney shows as well. Ties in specifically to One Man. Everybody knows what I'm talking about already, but we'll talk about it when we get there. But yeah, I mean, thematically, it hits all of those hallmarks of the classic Gothic monster story. It's got everything. It's got the fear of the outsider. It's got monsters as a mirror to humanity. It's got everything that you're looking for. It's sort of there's almost unrequited love there. They ditched that quite early on, but it's kind of that's almost in there as well. You could argue there's possibly even elements of Beauty and the Beast thrown in there as well, and some Gothic romance. It's got everything that I love about monster movies. But especially, for younger kids, when this is being programmed, at a time when they could watch it and marketed at a time where, yes, they can watch it. These are things they won't have been exposed to. And it's dealing with these really lofty themes that are really opening their eyes up to things. But then for us as an adult audience, and like that was the in for me then, and it was what really, really grabbed me now watching this time. It's like, especially this time of year as well, like I'm still off work at the moment because I've just come back from holiday, so I'm just about to dive headlong into a Universal Monsters marathon, because why wouldn't you? So and like this is teeing me up perfectly. Like, you get everything that you get in Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein, it's all here as well. Like I said, you've got all of that fear there. You've got, what is human and who am I and how do I fit in this society? You've got the sort of, all right, they're not men, but you've got the man of time aspect to it as well now, where we're examining our culture through an outsider because they've been sort of encased in granite for the last 1,000 years or whatever it is. It's got everything. And it, again, it would be very easy to throw that away as a storytelling tool and as a gag device. It was very easy to see, well, they've never seen TV before. Well, they've never seen a motorbike before. But they don't just use it cheaply like that. They really do go into depth on, what is TV then, and how does it affect the world around us, and what are the consequences of riding a motorbike, and actually what are the stereotypes that we get associated with bikers, and are they correct, and why are bikers like that? And that sounds like a lot to pack into an animated show in half hour, but they manage it, and they manage it beautifully.
They definitely do. I mean, the other thing that struck me with it is that this was 94 to 97, and this was a direct precursor to Hunchback of Notre Dame. And again, a lot of those themes that they explore in the show, and they do so well with the show, they really do take and expand on in that movie. Again, the whole thing of the outsider, what am I? If I'm not human, and all the rest of it. So there's a lot of that in there as well. So, and I wouldn't say that without this show there wouldn't be that movie, because the story's already there anyway. I mean, Disney of the time were dragging in as many classics as they could and making movies out of them. All power to them, because what they did was usually great. So I mean, you'd have had it anyway, but there's a lot of similarities, and not just with the aesthetic. Some of the darker aesthetic in Hunchback of Notre Dame does have similarities to this as well. So again, some of the palettes, some of the when you're looking at the gargoyles and the cathedral, they've got some very definite lines which are borrowed from this as well. So you can see there's an influence to it, even if it's not a direct result of. There's very much an influence. We're okay, well, that's kind of what gargoyles look like. So we can borrow from that. We can use the same technique or the same principle, even if they're not drawn the same, or they don't look the same. We can draw them in the same way to show people that this is what gargoyles look like. This is what a monster looks like in real life. All this sort of stuff. So there's some interesting correlations there as well, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, there's actually, one thing I haven't been able to find too much detail on actually is the production process of the show.
I found a bit on that.
Cool. Okay, because it's interesting you touched on that, because one of the things that was jumping out at me was how it very much cements itself as a Disney product. It's like Disney again wants to stick its flag in the sand and say, no, actually, this is ours. I know it doesn't look like it should be Disney, but this is ours. Constantly you get Hudson flicking around the telly and he'll land on a Donald Duck cartoon or an episode of DuckTales or so Disney exists canonically within the universe of Gargoyles, for one. But then there is also, like you mentioned, the similarities to Hunchback, but I think also in the character designs, and I don't know, possibly even in some of the animations, it depends whether it's done in-house or not, but there are, Goliath especially, there are elements of the beast in his character design, the way he walks on his haunches.
His stature, his gait,
the way he wraps his wings around himself like a cloak. He's very much the beast. So there's the tie-in there, and then of course voiced by Keith David, who works with Disney a lot and then would go on to become Dr. Facilier, but that is way in the future from when this is being made. But there is a lot of very uniquely Disney things in this, and there's a lot that you can see tied in. And again, you mentioned thematically tying into Hunchback, and yes, you're correct there, but there's also again those thematic ties to Beauty and the Beast then, with the relationship between him and Marza. There's also even elements of, if you want it and you want to go looking for it, and I do because I'm a Disney nerd, there's elements even of things like Little Mermaid and Bambi in there as well, where it's like, well, actually, what is the human world like? Because it looks like a right fucking tire fire from where I am. Do you know what I mean? And there's that in it as well. Like there is that judgmental side of, well, they're the humans, and they constantly call it the humans, because they're making a mess of things.
And they're very much not to be trusted, and we don't like them. And
so there's all of that
almost,
as well.
I mean, it's almost and as you say, it's a very Disney thing, but they play off that as, if you look back at sort of you go back to the late 18th, early 19th century writers, people like Edward Said, where they're talking about the Orient and the other and stuff like that. It sort of flips that on its head, and it goes, well, actually, no. This is from our perspective, they're the ones that are different. They're the other. They're the ones that are wrong, and just just flipping that sort of narrative on its head, and it, as a viewer, it makes you very uncomfortable.
Yes, it does.
Certainly as an adult viewer, as a kid, probably wouldn't have noticed. But I say probably because I didn't watch it. But as an adult viewer, you look at it and think, fuck yeah, that's a lens we really don't want to be looking through. That's a way we don't want to be portrayed. And you move forward, and not just with this show, but we get into sort of the more environmentally conscious stuff of the early aughts and stuff like that. Where actually, we look at stuff like WALL-E. Humans are the fucking problem.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's always the way. And then going back to not so much Little Mermaid, but certainly Beauty and the Beast. It's the people that are the problem. It's not the savage. It's not the beast. Pocahontas. It's the civilized people who are the problem. And all the way through it. I say it's such a Disney thing.
And again, it is. Yeah, you're right. It inverts that kind of classic fear of the other, which, again, depending on what you're going looking for and what kind of monster movie you like. And I do like both sides of this camp. But, if you're going for something like your traditional vampire movie or something like that, where the fear of the other is or a zombie film where the fear of the other is very much us being attacked and you are afraid of that thing. Then fine. What this does is it goes that kind of sort of tragi horror route, that gothic horror route of Frankenstein or a mummy or something like that, where it's like, well, yeah, but actually this thing is monstrous because we've made it monstrous. We're the other here. This thing is just, Frankenstein's monster is just trying to exist. And that's what this is as well. These gargoyles are just trying to exist. They would happily be left alone, but we can't because they look different and we're arseholes. So it's them afraid of us. It just so happens that they're able to rip us apart if they want to. And again, talking about the violence, you mentioned it earlier with them grabbing the sword and the blood, and I mentioned Marza getting shot, and she's lying there in a pool of blood. All of the humans are firing guns all the fucking time, and they don't shy away from it. Like they don't, a lesser show or a more conscientious show, you could argue then, that was careful around network censorship and things at the time as well, would never allow a gun to be directly fired on screen at another human or another living sentient being. Even it would always be, you'd have to fire a laser gun at a robot or something like that, or it'd be a way around firing a gun. It would just be knocked out of their hand or whatever. They don't do that. They do not shy away from that here at all. People are firing guns left, right, and center, and they fucking kill people. If you get hit with a bullet, you is dead. It's as simple as that. Like,
and it's interesting actually when you get to the third season, so the Goliath Chronicles. So that was done. They weren't expecting to get that third series, the third season, and it came just after the purchase of ABC. So they needed content, so they commissioned that season. But then the third season, you don't get the guns being fired because it's on all of a sudden it's on national broadcast television.
Yeah.
So standards and practices are entirely different, and you can't. Same reason you haven't elsewhere. You cannot get away with that on a Saturday morning kids show.
No.
So all of a sudden it's like, right, okay, that was another thing that made it a completely different show.
Yeah, and there's also a massive. Now's the time to talk about this. There's a massive cultural shift within the company at exactly that time between seasons 2 and 3. What you have is Frank Wells passes away, unfortunately, which leaves Eisner steering the company. And for as much as I've sung his praises from a creative standpoint, and yes, he's a very divisive person, I know, but I think creatively he was very, very good for the company.
Yeah.
And the problem was, as soon as he all of a sudden had to run the ship entirely on his own, he lost his fucking marbles. He completely took his eye off the ball and lost his marbles, and there is no shying away from that. So what you have in the meantime is people that would have been directly involved with the production of this show at the time. You'd have had people like Katzenberg, I would imagine. I don't know what the production staff exactly was, but Katzenberg would have had some input for the first 2 series of the show, I would have thought. And he's one of the first casualties because Eisner falls out with him immediately, and Katzenberg just goes, well, fuck you then. I'm off over here and I'm going to do my own thing, and DreamWorks is born.
Yeah.
Again, you can make your own mind up. I have a very unpopular opinion when that's concerned. I do not like DreamWorks Animation Studios at all, and I don't really rate Katzenberg, if I'm honest. However, you cannot deny that there was lightning in a bottle when you had Wells and Eisner and Katzenberg and even Roy at the time as well, and all these people who didn't really get on.
But they didn't need to, because what they were putting together was working.
And there is a great creative energy that comes from that. You know, if you've got, and we talked about it only last episode of Mario Brothers when we were talking about Killer Sofa, when you've got a lot of people in the room who all think the same, then sometimes you could be a little bit creatively risk averse and a little bit creatively stagnant sometimes. And whereas when you've got people that will argue with you and bicker and you have to reach that stalemate, that's when real genius happens. And look,
that's the point where you're trying to one up each other.
Yeah, and look, these people would have been involved with this at an executive production level at most. Okay, these are not people that were writing this show, so I'm not crediting them with anything. However, when you're talking about what you can get away with and what you can get through the net and what the show needs to look like and feel like and what we're allowed to do, the company becomes very, very risk averse as soon as that ABC purchase goes through, and all of a sudden, yes, they have to fill a block of content, you know, and that's where all of a sudden we start seeing the Disney Afternoon come in, and you get all of these shows now that they've previously run on their own getting packaged together because fuck, we need content. So we'll have the Disney Afternoon and just syndicate it all, rerun it all, and package it together in a block. Look, we love that. We love the Disney Afternoon on this show, and I'm not criticizing, but that directly had an impact, I would say. And from what I've read, it certainly sounds like that was the case as well.
That's what killed this show effectively. I mean, the first season was very tight. So certainly what I've seen was very tight, and everything I've read otherwise says the same thing, that it was primarily the same writers. It was a husband and wife duo with a couple of other people who were brought in, and they were kind of writing it together. There were 4 of them, I think, who wrote the whole season. Did the 13 episodes, and then Disney went, right, we want a second season. We'll pay for a second season. And the way they did it is they said, right, we'll design it, we'll write it, we'll produce it, and then when we go on to the next one, then they were done in 10-month blocks. So they spent a lot of time putting that first season together, which is why it looks so good, why it sounds so good, why the writing's so tight and all the rest of it. Disney went, right, okay, we want to syndicate it. We want another 52 of those next year. So if you give us a second season of 52 episodes, that takes us to that magic 65. We can syndicate it. We can run it every day.
Yeah.
That's what we want. And despite the creators going, we can't do that. The process we've got in place that's made it such a good show, we cannot replicate at 4 times the scale. So in the end, they ended up flooding it with writers, flooding it with animators just to get it done. And that's why the second season isn't as well received as the first, because I think at one point it's described as the Gargoyles World Tour, because they're all off trying to find out the gargoyles, and they sort of try to do spin-offs because they can't tell one cohesive story because there's so many people writing it. And it's the problem you get to when you get to sort of bigger TV shows anyway, and on long range shows, is that where you have a writer's room, you still need somebody steering the ship. You still need somebody to say, look, this is where we're going with it. So you can do what you want with the episode, but these are the beats you need to hit. They couldn't afford to do that because they had so many people and so little time. So instead of having 10 months plus 10 months plus 10 months to put it together, all of a sudden you've got 8 months to make 4 times as many episodes as you made in 3 years.
Yeah, and you could. I mean, I'm not deep into the second season yet, but I'm expecting to see the quality dip. And as I say, I have seen some of the third season. That was what I originally saw. I definitely, it's not up there with what I've seen in the first, but I do also, just as a quick bile on that, remember reading something during my research as well, specifically about Eisner. And I've talked. He's my go-to guy for when I say, like, when you want to talk about a producer, when you want to talk about high concept, like, love him or hate him, like, he's undeniably one of the most successful producers ever. All right, he fucking knows what's good and what's not. All right, unfortunately, he will drive it into the ground, but he knows what's good and what's not. And it was interesting to me to read that actually after the first season, Eisner clocked onto what this was immediately, and essentially almost gave us the MCU before the MCU. He watched this and went, there's a whole franchise here, and this is where the World Tour concept came out of it. They had to go off and find all of these other Gargoyles who were going to have their own shows, and then everybody was going to team up, and there was going to be a whole Gargoyles universe.
Yeah.
And he's thinking about that some 10 years before the MCU.
Much more than that, probably 15.
So
I mean,
again, the problem credit
was,
where it's due.
I mean, I think the problem was then by the time they got out of that season, and then they got out of that second season, they bought ABC, and they just needed to rattle out content quickly. Disney kind of shat the bed with it, and it was like, just fucking make more of what we've got, because we won't go down the extended universe route. We haven't got time to explore it. We haven't got we just need to get stuff out. We just spend all this money in ABC. We need content. Just get something out as quick as you can. By which point it kind of lost its aura, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Those early ABC years were all about just spunking money into that network to get it. But it wasn't about brand new original programming. It was
get stuff on air.
How many quiz shows can we knock? It's where Who Wants to Be a Millionaire came from. Like when it went over there, it was like ABC caught on to it, and they were like, right, this is fucking cheap, and we need programming, and we need it now.
Yeah.
So
and
they just
when you went into your reality shows like fucking American Idol and stuff like that, is we have one set, we can use it for a whole year, and repeat, lather, rinse, repeat for the next 10 years. We build one set, we don't need to do anything else.
And unfortunately, this would have been an expensive show, so you can see the business logic behind that. Now, I'm not defending that decision, but the company had to survive, and it was going through a very, very turbulent time. So it wasn't until, ironically, Iger, who was in charge of ABC at the time, would then come along and steady the fucking ship and buy Pixar and buy fucking Star Wars and buy Marvel and just right that ship again.
Yeah.
That they could be in a position to do creative things and to take the kind of risks that they're again taking now. People criticize Disney a lot, and some of it fairly, it is fair, but a lot of it, we forget just how many risks they're willing to take, and with their products as well. You look at the stuff that's being fired out on Disney Plus now, and you look at the kind of the chances that they're taking with things that, which, now to us, of course, they were going to be a surefire hit, but you look at the chances they're taking on things like a Loki or a WandaVision or a Mandalorian, where these are like second-rate characters at best from blockbuster movies.
And even beyond that, you look from the purchase of Fox, you've got Star on Disney Plus now, which is all this with the adult content, and some of the stuff they're putting original content on there, and actually, you're thinking, right, okay, that's something that. What did I watch last week? Is a pseudo sitcom called Dollface with Kat Dennings. Original products shouldn't really work. It's a generic sitcom about a girl who gets dumped and she's reconnecting with her girlfriends, having been completely dominated by her boyfriend for however many years. And so it's nothing original. It's nothing particularly exciting. But they've gone, right, you know what? It's got a face in it who threw between two broke girls being a success it was never supposed to be, and her involvement with Marvel. All of a sudden, it's right. Okay, we can do this. We can do something with her.
Mm.
And the week that came out, that was all over the splash screen of Disney Plus.
Yeah.
And no, yes, okay. Now they've gone into, they've got the final series of Walking Dead, so you've got What If, and you've got all this other Marvel stuff coming through as well. But actually, you look at you go into that Star section, and they've got quite a lot of stuff in there. Thinking actually, they should, for what it is, you wouldn't expect them to want to be involved, because it's not. No, it's not glittering. It's not big names. It's not it's not high concept. It's just normal TV shows. But actually, they're still churning out good shit.
Yeah, they are. People unfairly. This isn't a Disney podcast, but this is a Disney product, so it feels like we're talking at least tangentially, sort of. Right.
Fuck,
on the
we
subject,
can do a Disney podcast. That's fine.
I mean, we probably should at some point, but people, particularly people who don't really understand quite the mega corporation that Disney is now, sort of unfairly tend to tar them with a brush about being the Mickey Mouse company. They think Disney is in the business of Mickey Mouse, and it's really not. Mickey Mouse is a figurehead, and Disney's actually, and always has been, in my opinion, been in the business of giving us the absolute best entertainment possible. Like, they don't cut a corner. They never have. Even in the real dark days in the late 70s and the early 80s, you look at something like Black Cauldron. Nobody else was ever going to make that. That film is fucking mental. Nobody else would even think about making it. But Disney, putting artistry at the forefront, just went, well, there will be an audience out there for it. People will come and see it because it looks cool, and fucking hell, the Horned King looks cool. And all right, it was a complete misfire, but they took the chance. And that's the kind of thing, when I say that I don't like DreamWorks and I don't like Katzenberg, that's the kind of thing that a DreamWorks won't do.
No, I mean, you look at DreamWorks products, and they are all very safe. Like,
safe.
I mean, even when you look at, Ants was possibly better than A Bug's Life in terms of story, not in terms of animation, but in terms of story, it was possibly better. They kind of came at the same time. Shrek is on the surface. Shrek is it's all about not being superficial, and about what's on the surface and what's all the rest of it. But actually, it's a very safe franchise.
Shrek is quite literally Katzenberg just telling Eisner to go and fuck himself. It's why, and everybody was writing about it at the time, saying, it's anti-Disney, it's taking all these fairy tales and sticking them on it. Yes, it absolutely is, because that is Katzenberg going, fuck you.
We don't need to. You don't need to do all this to be a successful studio. As you say, it's a big fuck you. But the product itself, in terms of, it's not doing anything groundbreaking. It's a fairly safe product. And as the franchise goes on, it becomes, if anything, it becomes more safe. They become less inclined to do anything remotely controversial. I mean, there's some jokes in the first one which you wouldn't get away with on a Disney mainstream animated film. Things like Pinocchio lying, and when you've got somebody bending over in front of him and tell him to trying to get him to tell a lie. You wouldn't get that in a Disney product. So there are some elements of the humor with that. But as you go through the franchise, actually it becomes more and more safe, more and more mundane. And actually, by the time you get to Shrek 76 or whatever we're on now, it's like watching the fucking Waltons.
Again, this isn't going to be a DreamWorks bashing podcast, but I think you're dead right. And I think even if you take the DreamWorks Disney comparison out of it and you go, say, DreamWorks Illuminations, you look at Illumination have arguably less money than DreamWorks, but because of that, they are more willing to take those risks, and I would argue their product has a lot more heart because of it as well. Like, for all, Minions are fucking everywhere now, and we fucking hate them. Like, those three fucking films, those first three Despicable, they're fucking good. Like, yes, the Minions are annoying because they're everywhere, but those films have the kind of heart that's completely absent from a DreamWorks product.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, I've got a bit of a soft spot for Ants, I will say. I don't know why, it just sort of resonates a bit, but you look at the Despicable Me films. The third one, not so much. So by the time they get to the third one, they kind of tread in water, and they're sort of having the Minion spin-offs. They're there for kids because kids like Minions, because kids are stupid. But the first two certainly are very clever, and they do have a lot more character than you will ever give them credit for. And the difference is because you look at a Disney product, and like they've changed their style in the of the sort of the last decade or so, where faces are shaped in a particular way, eyes are always bigger than they should be, stuff like that. And you certainly look at Elsa, and her eyes are far bigger than her fucking head should allow. But the animation style in the Illumination films, it's deliberately obscure. Now they look like cartoons. So you look at The Simpsons as an example of what cartoons are in terms of these are people, but they don't look like people. They're just close enough. You know they're supposed to be people as opposed to being dogs, but actually, their faces aren't quite the right shape, and they're the wrong colors and stuff like that. I mean, they're yellow and okay, fine. And then you look at Gru, for example. Gru shouldn't work. His legs are far too thin for his body. His body's too long for his neck, and his head would his neck would snap because it's so big compared to his neck. So all this sort of stuff. But actually, you don't care about that because the characterization is there, and as you said, the heart is there. So you want him to succeed with adopting the girls. You want him and Lucy to get together in the second one. You root for these characters even though you really shouldn't, and that's something you very rarely do with the DreamWorks product.
Yeah, but I think that's. I think it is that heart. It's not the production design of it or anything like that. I think it is very much that they're a studio that are willing to take a chance with the storytelling, take a chance with the characters, and we talk about the drop off then with things like Despicable Me 3 and now Minions 72 and stuff like that. And I don't think it'd be a coincidence that that's started to happen as they've been acquired by DreamWorks, because DreamWorks is this just conveyor belt. We're going way off topic now. DreamWorks is this fucking conveyor belt, in my opinion, that's just like, well, look, that's popular, so churn another one out. It's fine. Churn another one out. Churn another one out, and it's lost all that heart. Whereas, what I'm trying to say, what I'm trying to get at here is a Katzenberg on his own and a DreamWorks is never going to give you Gargoyles.
No.
Whereas Eisner on his own is just fucking mental enough to just go, all right, we'll have a go. And we'll see what happens for 13 episodes.
Yeah,
if it takes
for 13
off,
episodes, it's nothing. If it doesn't work, we just won't make any more.
Exactly, because he was the master of just high concept. You only got to walk into his office, as stories go. Not that I've ever done it, and just go, right, we got this fucking series. Gargoyles come to life and they run around New York. And he's like, okay, fine, go do it.
Yeah.
I like that, or I don't like that. You're crazy, and that's what it would be. But generally, the more bonkers, the higher the concept.
Yeah.
Because he was that guy. He was Mr. High Concept Pitch. Yeah. So you can see him in the room going like, yeah, I like that, run with it. But then when things start to fall apart and he can't get involved in this sort of thing anymore, and he's lost Katzenberg, who was specifically looking after this sort of thing, then you can see where that drop comes in the third season. So and it's a shame, because without a shadow of a doubt, this first season, I mean, I don't think I can say it's better than Batman Animated, because I think it probably isn't. But there is a fucking hair's breadth between these shows, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's and that's coming from between the two.
Yeah, and that's coming from a huge fan of Batman the Animated Series. But this is,
I mean, Christ, if you think this has been on our list since day one, we're now episode nearly 100.
Yeah,
that was episode 2.
Yeah, so that gives you some basis for comparison. But I mean, yes, it owes a huge debt to that as well. Let's not pretend that it doesn't. Like you've mentioned the look of it already, in the art style and everything. It's even got that kind of almost Art Deco feel to it. Even though it's set in present day New York, it's got that Gotham Art Deco feel running through it as well.
It does. And I mean, the other thing I did fancy with it as well, it does. It kind of feels like it has a bit of sort of the early 90s cop drama about it as well. Having our in through Marza is that we do have that sort of almost Hill Street Blues type vibe to it, where they're unlikely partners, and there's very much a fish out of water, incongruous relationship between the two of them, between her and Goliath. So I mean, it owes a lot to that type of stuff, but I think it really does execute it in a way that you don't notice so much. I mean, no, you're not going to go into this thinking, oh well, if they've just sort of rammed those two together. She is very much a character in this show. She's not there as a cipher. She's not there as a spin-off or a girlfriend or any sort of token female just to appeal to girl viewers. She is front and center in this show.
Yes, she is. And there is unquestionably a lesser version of this show where it's basically Alien Nation, where it's, excuse me, crimes happening in New York, and on the edge, down and out New York cop teams up with the Gargoyle, and they go out fighting crime, and it's Alien Nation, right? And there's comedy because of the differences between the two of them.
Yeah,
they don't do that because, and you mentioned it there, this show, and the reason why its through lines work so well and storytelling works so well is this show absolutely treats every one of these characters as a character in their own right and treats them with respect. So it's not about Goliath teaming up with Marza because he has no interest really in teaming up with the police and fighting crime.
No,
it's just about the fact that these two people are morally aligned and have some things in common, and so form a bond and form a friendship. And there is, there's also a kind of, it's not an accident she's a cop. She's not a cop because of the crime fighting element of it, and the Gargoyles can help her fight crime. It's not a narrative device in that sense. She is a cop because that, by association, means that she is going to be up at all hours of the night chasing criminals. She exists in the seedy underbelly.
Yeah,
that's why she's a cop, because she's on the same time scale as the Gargoyles.
And not only that, I mean, she's positioned, and I mean, obviously, recent events, both here and in America, would suggest otherwise. But the idea being that she's a cop, she's on the side of right, she's going to be moral, she's going to be just. So, as I said, they are going to be morally aligned. So there's a natural bond there. Yeah. And yeah, it doesn't seem forced, which I think a lot of these things you get. I mean, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. There's the remake of Turner Hooch on Disney Plus at the moment, and for as entertaining as it is, and it's reasonably well produced. Who in the fuck wanted a Turner and Hooch series?
I totally agree, and it is. By the way, it is entertaining.
I'm not knocking it. I'm not knocking it. I'm enjoying it, but who in the fuck wanted that?
I didn't want it, and I'm not sure I want it now, but I'm watching it and it's entertaining me. Yeah. It's not great, but it's entertaining and it works.
Yeah.
Whereas
this, it doesn't. It doesn't. I mean, that feels very forced and very staged, whereas this feels quite natural. I mean, obviously we're looking at it now, fucking 20 years removed, and some of the dialogue's a bit iffy, and yes, it looks like shit because Disney haven't put the effort into remastering it. But actually, you believe that relationship. You believe those characters would be together.
You 100% do. And then, you've even then got the juxtaposition of her against Demona as well. And so, none of this is accidental. They've thought about these characters. And again, as I say, there's the episode with Brooklyn where with Broadway, where he accidentally shoots her. And he has a Batman moment. And again, you got that Batman similarity, but he decides there and then on the spot that he fucking hates guns.
Yeah, I'm going to go and get all the guns. I'm going to round them all up, and anybody who's peddling them is going to fucking pay.
And that, like every other episode I've watched since, whenever there's a gun, he immediately snatches the gun and breaks it. That is the first thing he does. Now, that's the kind of character development that you don't expect to see in a children's animated show. That would be something normally that he learns his lessons so the kids can learn the lesson that guns are bad, okay? And then next episode, that's just completely gone by the wayside. He'll never be referred to again. And it's so subtle as well. Like, he doesn't make a big thing of like, I hate guns. He just sees a gun.
He just takes the gun.
He just destroys the gun, like, immediately, because this is a thing that almost killed his friend. Yeah. So he hates it, and there's all sorts of little things like that just strewn throughout, that these little characters you don't see anywhere else. There's Goliath, and again, it's very subtle. It comes out in the character work. It's at no point does he have a monologue or anything like that. But there's Goliath's very clear self-doubt as well, running all the way through the show, where he's like, we talk at length on Game of Moans about how heroes always have the weight of the world on their shoulders, and it's that, like he's responsible, or he feels responsible for keeping all of his friends alive, and for the fact that they almost died, and he thought they were lost to him in the beginning anyway. Yeah. And so you feel that weight with him, and you feel that there are quiet moments where he's on his own, and without excessively monologuing, and just through a few lines and through the animation as well, they managed to convey just this real hefty worldliness that he's carrying with him of like, this is all on me. And then occasionally they're smart enough let him off the leash with that as well. Like there'll be times where he just rails at Xanatos for no other reason than you are in my way. And I hate that I can't do anything about it, but I don't hate you. I hate me because I'm powerless in this situation, because he doesn't understand the world. And again, that comes back to that holding the mirror to humanity and the monster being the other and things like that. And it's like he doesn't hold the cards here because Xanatos is a very, very powerful man in ways that Goliath can't even fathom.
Yeah, and I mean, even if you come back to that very first episode where you're back in medieval Scotland or pre-medieval Scotland even, where again, there's a really dark moment. You get this, there's the battle between the Vikings and whoever the fuck they're supposed to be. I'm assuming they're Saxons. But you get that fight where the Vikings are invading and they turn to stone, and they're all, I say Goliath and a handful of others have gone off, and the rest of them turn to stone, and the Vikings destroy the statue side of it, so they kill the gargoyles. It's a very dark thing especially for your first episode. It's a very dark move. But then on the back of that, you get the Magus then turns them all. He banishes them all, or he petrifies them all, etc. So we do that, and then as soon as they come out in that second episode, or the end of the first episode, once you start exploring it in the second episode, it's this whole thing of, hang on, we shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be here because all of my people died, my family died, my friends died. I don't deserve to be here. And yeah, the way he conveys that, he doesn't say that. He never says that. But it's you would expect it in live action because an actor can they can portray a lot with a look. They can be a side with glad of wringing of fingers, not in sort of an obvious sense, but just an involuntary movement that they do, something that's part of this they've built into the character. But when you're animating and you've got somebody's got to design, somebody's got to think of it and write it, somebody's got to design it, somebody's got to animate it, and then somebody's got to perform it.
Yeah,
it has to be a lot more deliberate than that. And I think that again, it's something, as we said at the start, this is not something you expect from a kids show, because yes, okay, you have these heroes who do feel burdens and all the rest of it. And we were getting into these sort of longer form narrative shows in the early 90s, but an animated monster who feels the weight of everything that's happened to his people, because he wasn't there to stop it. And if he'd been there, he'd been dead with them, because he did turn to stone.
Yeah.
But I haven't watched all the way through, and I intend to, so that's what this week is for, because fuck it, why not? But he will carry that with him, that guilt of the fact that it's like survivor's guilt.
Yeah, definitely.
No, there's a lot of sort of post-Holocaust stuff written about that, about the people who made it out of the camps, the people who managed to survive by some miracle or other. But they didn't end up marched into ovens and all the rest of it. They feel guilty because they survived, and that's exactly what you get with Goliath. Not so much with the others. The others are a bit more stereotypical, and I think they're kind of, certainly early on, they're there to make up the numbers and to be the comic relief. And
they each get their moment in the sun. But
from what I've seen, from what I've seen and what they've read, they all grow and they all get something. But the early episodes, that seems very much what they're for. They are there to lighten the mood. They're there for comic relief, whereas Goliath is there feeling every single crack in the stone. Every winter they were battered by wind for 1,000 years, and all this sort of stuff, because he shouldn't have survived. None of them should have survived. They should have all died because the rookery died. The ones on the cliffs died. Why did we survive? Yeah. Why do I deserve to be here and nobody else is? And that's so well balanced in this show. It's absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah, it is. And like, you're dead right. Those initial episodes, there's almost a Ninja Turtles effect to it, where there's a funny one and there's an inventive one, and then so you've got all of that, but then they do all grow because this is an overarching narrative. These characters all get room to breathe. There's another beautiful episode, or moments within an episode anyway, right towards the end of the first season. I think it might be the last but one episode. If not, it's just before it. But there's an episode where Goliath gets pretty badly banged up, and he's unable to sort of look out for himself, basically. And so Hudson stays with him to protect him. Yeah. And there's just this moment between them where Hudson's basically just reflecting and going, look, I'm an old man. Like, I cannot protect you. I'm the wrong person to do this. And previously he's just been the kind of slightly jovial, but, just older guy that's been like, oh, it's all right, you hang back and watch telly. Do you know what I mean? He's in the chair with his dog and watching his TV, and he's got the Scottish accent, and you know, he feels like he's some sort of just old granddad figure.
Yeah, he's there as the wise old sage who will guide them through but won't do anything.
But then to bring it to the forefront, you know, and to have him question that again, it's a case of, well, I'm in this situation now, and you know, my surrogate son essentially is potentially going to die because I'm old and soft because I've been watching TV, and they allow him to have that moment.
I can't
and again,
him.
And again, a lesser show wouldn't even touch that. They wouldn't touch that with a barge pole. It would just be,
it would be a comic episode.
Yeah, it would be.
It would be a case of, okay, well, Goliath's weak, so we're gonna make the other one look after him, but the other one's gonna fuck it up time and time again. It's gonna be funny.
Yeah, and
it's gonna be so stupid it's funny. And
there's none of that. You know, there's the stuff with Brooklyn where he's trying to fit in, and he gets it grossly wrong. You know, and he doesn't understand. You know, that's where we first really see kind of the underside of humanity. You know, and then obviously he gets twisted around and things as well, and so. There's all of that, you know.
Isn't there one with Mars's brother as well?
Yes,
which I've read about. Where again, there's lots of there's stuff about sort of familiar responsibility and that type of thing. And this type of stuff is done in kids shows all the time, but it's always done in a way that it's very black and white.
Yeah,
and the leading character has to learn something, and. In this show, from what I've seen, and certainly what I'm hoping to see going forward, and from what you said, I think I will. There's not so much of that. It's not a case of, well, this is right and this is wrong and this is where we stand, and we're gonna. There need to be those shades of grey, and I think again going back to Batman the Animated Series, you had that. You know, you had these sort of slightly morally ambiguous characters. You had characters who were very much good and very much bad, but you had these ones who were kind of in the middle as well. You didn't know where they sat, but in amongst all of that, you had humanity as well. You had some real heart and some real guile to it, and that's what that's the impression I've certainly got from the first 5 episodes of the show, is that's where this is going to go. That you do have these characters who are going to right. We're living in a time we shouldn't be living in a world that doesn't want us. What does that mean? Yeah.
Who are we? Where do we fit in? And those questions get asked, and I think you're right. You know, in a lesser show. Look, just because we watched it recently and because I think it's the perfect example of this kind of thing, let's take He-Man. Okay, if we get an episode of He-Man where somebody accidentally gets hit with a fucking laser gun or whatever, what you get at the end of the episode is Orko coming up and fucking up something with a gun again, and then He-Man coming in and saying, "Oh, that's enough, Orko. Don't play with guns anymore." You know, and it would be, we've learned today that guns can kill people. So, and you would be lectured to, and it would be done on a very simplistic level.
Yeah.
Whereas they treat the audience with far more respect here, and it is a case of, well, no, through the actions and through, you know, through emoting with the animation here and the performance, we're going to show you how much this has fucked this character up. Yeah. And the lesson is going to come through that. It's not going to come through him turning and addressing camera and saying, "I really wish I hadn't shot Maz's gun at her." No. Yes, he has that moment where he has to break down and confess to Goliath that it's his fault and he's so sorry and he'll never do it again. Of course, you need that narratively. But then we're allowed to move past that with him. And I think that resonates far more deeply than just having Goliath turn to camera at the end of the episode and say, "Guns are bad, kids, so don't fire them or I'll come and rip your fucking throat out." You know, that's not...
Oh, that would have worked too.
That probably would, because he's very fucking scary. I mean, that is
the eyes red.
Yeah, that's the other thing I mentioned, that I saw these adverts. I initially got in because I saw these adverts for it and I saw the figures. And it was the designs of the gargoyles themselves. Like the first image I remember seeing of gargoyles was a drawing of Goliath. And straight away I was just like, that looks fucking badass. Like, he's terrifying.
Yeah.
Like, and again, you could have softened him and you could have made him look like a friendly gargoyle, look like a hero. And they've done that with some of the others.
Yeah, the others are slightly more rounded. They're not as angular. Goliath is a curious one, because Goliath, the character design of Goliath reminds me a bit of Mumra.
I can see that with the loincloth and
not just the colouring, but sort of the stature as well, the posture, the gait.
I can see
it's all kind of very similar. And that was one thing that sort of struck me very early on. So I mean, you could be forgiven as a child looking at it thinking, "Oh fuck, this is a show about monsters."
Yes, that's what I thought it was going to be, and that's sort of what it is. But that's what I
yeah.
got from that image. But then it flips that on its head, you know. As we said, it subverts.
It's the mirror to humanity.
It subverts that, and we're very much the monsters, and Goliath is actually a very decent person. You know, there's all these little moments with him as well, where like everybody else is upstairs watching TV and stuff, and Maz will come in. She'll be like, "Where's Goliath?" "Oh, he's down in the library." You know, and he's down there reading fucking Shakespeare and Dostoevsky, and you know, he's looking to catch up on what's happened in the last 1,000 years and understand us better so that he can coexist with us. Whereas we as a people, as humanity, see him and go, it's a monster, kill it.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to understand who he is and where he's come from.
Yeah.
You know, and you mentioned way earlier on, actually, you mentioned there's something very Shakespearean about it. And actually, one thing I have picked up on, some of it's blatant. There is a character called Macbeth later on. But there are a lot of nods to Shakespeare throughout this.
Yeah, I mean, even looking at the first couple of episodes with Demona.
Yes, yeah.
There's a very obvious sort of Lady Macbeth vibe there, where she's very much in the ear, and she's kind of she's whispering, and she's you know straight, as soon as you see it, because the introduction you get is with Xanatos, where she's hidden, and he's talking to her off screen, and and she sort of steps into frame and stuff. So you know straight away that's where she's been played. But you could have done that in such a more subtle way, in that sort of Lady Macbeth vein, where look, this is what you want to know, this is who you are, and I'm just going to be in your ear and just poisoning the well every time I get a chance, just twisting your words against you, just manipulating things just enough to make you see things in a slightly different way, but not to the extent of, well, actually, I'm evil, because that was the one thing that let that arc down for me, actually, was Demona, because the way she was handled, it wasn't, whereas everybody else was kind of trying to fit in and trying to find a place, it was like, well, yeah, she's been here all along, so of course she understands humans, and because of that she hates them, so she's going to try and poison you all against them. It would be far more effective if you'd sort of, even if she's acting with it, if you see that come over time, even over
hold that thought before you,
right, okay,
because they do dive into that quite extensively throughout the rest of the season. She doesn't appear in every episode,
okay,
but even episodes that she's not in, her presence is felt. There is a lot to do with Demona and where she's been, and she does start to, spoilers, she does start to get in the ears of the other gargoyles as well, and say, well, is Goliath really the leader that you think he is, and are these humans really your friends, and shouldn't we maybe be thinking about looking after ourselves? And so there is that. I think that introduction perhaps was a little bit shock and awe.
Yeah, I think the introduction was heavy-handed. I haven't seen enough of it to see that side of coming. And if I were putting this together, that's where I'd have gone with it from the start with her.
Yeah.
But if that's where they're going with it, I'd be quite happy to see that.
Very much where they go with it. She really does lean into that Lady Macbeth role even more. As the series progresses, well, you even get the Weird Sisters. Right. Like there's so much. Which just adds to this kind of dark gothic vibe that it's got going on. That I mean, fucking hell, like Batman can get away with that for a kid show because it's Batman. So even though it's gothic and a bit noir, and occasionally he deals with some very adult themes and does so very well, it's still got Batman in it. So kids will watch it because it's got Batman in it.
Yeah. This is Disney. You don't expect this.
Yeah, this is Disney. It came out of nowhere. It's got fucking monsters in it. It's horrifically violent. It deals with some real heavy-handed issues. You know, to the point, the writing in this is so good. Something else I noticed in my research. We talk about tropes all the time on this show. There is a trope named after this, which I did not even realize.
Right.
But there is the Xanatos Gambit, which is where a villain will execute a plan. It will all go wrong, and he will still come away from it going, but it's okay, because actually my bigger plan was for this. And by doing this, I learned that next time, and that does happen with it. Xanatos, even as a character, grows as a villain, because every mistake he makes informs him, and he comes back better, smarter, and stronger.
I can see that. I assumed that was I assumed they named the character for that rather than the other way around.
No, it's the Xanatos Gambit.
Yeah, I assumed that was a thing before the show came out. I assumed that's why they called him Xanatos. Okay.
No,
So there you go. I've learned something today.
Yeah, it's come from this, or at least that's what Wiki told me.
Oh well, okay. I mean, to be fair, it's something that I've not really looked into. So I mean, I'd assumed that's why they named the character, not the other way around. But I've not really looked into it, so it could well be.
I would imagine it is correct, because when you read it, it literally is in every episode. Like every time.
Oh yeah,
completely. He's a villain, so he gets defeated. All right, that's the rules of the game. All right, but every time he gets defeated, he will have a moment where he goes, yes, okay, that didn't work out and that sucks, but actually now I've learned that he's weak to this, or now I've learned that. And and every time when he shows up next episode, there's a recurring villain or villains in the first season. Well, I guess I call them recurring villains. It's basically Xanatos, but he has an army of robot gargoyles that you see in the opening episodes.
Yeah.
Now they will reappear.
Yeah.
But they come back stronger because the gargoyles had defeated them once, and crucially, they come back with Xanatos inside basically an exosuit that looks like a gargoyle. He's built himself this combat armor that makes him look exactly like Goliath, and he's got Goliath's strength, but he can fly and stuff as well. Yeah. And again, it's a case of when he eventually gets defeated and he has to sort of cry off and run away, he's managed to preserve the armor, and he's like, well, yeah, but now I know that by wearing this armor, I can go toe to toe with Goliath. So now
I just need to add this bit, or just make it do that.
It's not even that, right? This is how smart the writing is in this show. Earlier in that episode, you see him sparring with his assistant. They're in a dojo sparring, and the assistant manages to kick him in the gut and take him down because he's been in jail, so he's out of practice.
Right.
So then it's, well, now I know that I have the technology to stand toe to toe with Goliath. Now I just have to train to learn his fighting style, and I have to learn how to take him down, which ties into the discussion he was having with his assistant earlier, and it all just comes together in this neat little bow where you go, this isn't fucking Krang or Shredder where they have a harebrained scheme every week, get their ass handed to them, and come back with another harebrained scheme. This is somebody who is getting defeated and learning and getting himself back up and trying again. And actually, in an odd way, that's probably one of the few things we can celebrate about humans and humanity in this show, despite the fact he's our villain.
Yeah. He gets back up again.
Yeah, he is completely indomitable. He is just like, you can knock me down, but I will come back, and I will come back stronger, and I will keep coming back, because I didn't get to be one of the most powerful men in the world by giving up. Yeah. And yes, all right, I'm a fucking evil, deplorable bastard, but,
Yeah, I should have run President instead. It would have been easier.
Yeah, I mean, you could tell that because he's got a ponytail. So, so and it's the 90s. So anyone with a ponytail.
And he's not Steven Seagal.
Well, I mean, I'd argue that maybe Steven Seagal's not exactly a shining example of humanity, is he?
No. But he was always cast on the slightly lighter side of Grey, wasn't he?
Yes. Well, he was always the hero, wasn't he? But
so not a very good one.
No, so there's that to it. Well, not latterly, because he's fat. But I don't know, he's a fat man now. He's really, really fat. He looks like he ate his younger self now. Like he's super fat. But yeah, so there's that element to it as well. Even the villains learn and progress in this. And again, when villains live to fight another day, not even Xanatos, there are occasional kind of villain of the weeks, if you like, or monsters of the week. There are in-universe reasons why they survive. It's not just like, aha, I'll get you next time, Gadget. There'll be a reason. They will be arrested, they will go to jail, or they will manage to escape. There's a brilliant moment with Macbeth, which is such a throwaway thing, but it's so obvious, and it's called the cape trick. I'm sure you've seen it before, but it's something I love whenever it happens in a fight because it's such an obvious thing. There's a moment where Goliath's just about defeated him, and he's got him up he's wearing a long coat, and he's got him up by the lapels of the coat, and he's giving him the rundown, like, you are a bad man, I'm going to punish you and stuff like that. And he just whips his arms in, slips out of the coat, and runs away. And he's like, credit where it's due, because that's such an obvious thing to do, and it's so easy. Like, wearing an oversized coat, I'm just going to shrink out of it and lay it.
No, funny enough, and anybody who has kids has done that in some way or shape or form with the jumper as well. I've done it this evening.
Yeah.
whereby putting the kids to bed, one of them grabs hold of my sleeve. You're not going anywhere. You're staying with me. Okay, I'll just pull. You hold the sleeve. I'll just pull my arm out, take the jumper off over my head without moving, and I'm gone. And it's that principle. But any parent will be able to do that. But yeah, it's such an obvious thing when you think about it.
Yeah, but most shows again would have just let Goliath sort of pummel him or whatever, but not kill him because you're not allowed to.
Send him to jail.
Yeah, and then he would just come back next episode.
Next week he won't be in jail. He'll just be out again.
It's not that. He's escaped on his own steam because actually he's smarter than Goliath. So he hasn't escaped for story reasons. He's escaped because the character is smart enough to think, right, you're a big, slow, dumb fucking monster.
Yeah.
And I can slip out of this coat and be gone before you've even realized what's happened. So that's what I'm going to do. And again, same thing with the Lexo suit episode with Xanatos. There comes a point where he's the only one of these robots left. All of the gargoyles surround him, on all sides, and he's scanning the battlefield. And every time he scans one of his robots, it just comes, they're in pieces, and it comes up as like destroyed. And there's the conscious decision of, nope, I'm going to cut and run. And I've got a jetpack, and canonically, these creatures cannot fly; they glide. So
again, that was another nice character touch actually from a very early on, because you see them in the first episode, you see them in the air all the time, so you assume they can fly, and then as soon as you get into New York where they're falling, it's like, I can't fly.
Yeah,
I can't fly.
Yeah, like I need wind.
This is going to hurt because I can't fly. I can't flap my wings and fly. We're going to hit the deck. This is going to fucking hurt.
Yeah, exactly. And they use that quite a lot. Like I say, Xanatos can just jetpack away, and they can't follow. Yeah, because they can't just take off and fly. That's not a thing they can do. Yeah. If they want to climb, then they first need to dive to get enough sort of wind behind them to then come back up. There's physics involved here. Yeah, it's gliding.
And it's been thought about as well, which it would be so easy to just go, they've got wings, they can fly.
Yeah, it doesn't work. They don't just flap those wings, as you say. That's not how this works. We haven't actually talked about the choreography either, which seems like a weird thing to talk about.
Yeah.
But the fights in this show they're just incredible. And again, when you see, you've got these gargoyles, and they've got, like, especially when you look at Goliath, obviously he's got long reach, he's got long, powerful arms and legs, but he's also got a massive fucking tail.
Yeah.
And they use that in the fights as well. Yeah. It's an extra appendage. Like, he'll sweep people with his tail and then pummel them while they're on the floor.
Yeah, and the temptation would be when you're designing that, when you're choreographing that, when you're animating that, the temptation would be the tail doesn't move.
Well, it would go one of two ways, wouldn't it? It's either, yes, the tail doesn't move, or all he does
is whip.
Is whip with it. Like all He-Man does is throw Skeletor because he can't punch him, right? Yeah. Because that would be wrong. So
he can't stab him.
Yeah, so all he would do is whip the tail. Well, he couldn't stab him.
Yeah.
all he could do is whip the tail. But no, in this, like, he'll whip the tail to take them off their feet. Then he'll land a flurry of punches on them while they're in the air. And then when they're on the floor, he'll like kick them in the face or something. It's ridiculous.
Stamp on them. Yeah.
It looks like something from Mortal Kombat when these guys are fighting. Like, they really thought about this.
Yeah, they have. They absolutely have.
And
but even when you had like the fight in the first episode with the Vikings when they're invading the castle, even those fight scenes, they're far more advanced than you get in any other of the cartoons we've looked at.
Oh, absolutely. Just everything about this show, certainly in the first season anyway, and the early second season episodes that I've seen so far, everything about this show is just head and shoulders above any, and I'm not saying this lightly, it is head and shoulders above anything else that we've watched on this show, save for the animated series, which like I say, there's a fucking gnat's pube between this and Batman for me, I think.
Yeah.
And Batman probably only wins because I've got the emotional attachment to Batman. Yeah. Otherwise, I don't know. I might actually say this is better.
I think the issue with this is that I say it doesn't look great. Which I mean certainly the Batman I bought when we did the episode, I bought it on iTunes. It was a remaster, so it's all very crisp, it's all very clean. This looks like it belongs in the early 90s. Disney haven't done it any favors, the way it looks. Storytelling, it's probably my favorite series of any type in any genre I've watched this year.
Yeah, I'd go along with that.
And this is a year where we've had WandaVision and The Mandalorian.
Yeah, true.
This is
all right. All right. Maybe I won't go with that then, because I did love WandaVision.
I love WandaVision. I thought WandaVision was incredible. This is a different type of show, but for me, as I've only seen the first half of season 1, so I can't judge it fully. But certainly on this show, this is the most complete show in terms of writing and story that we've watched in a very long time.
I would totally agree, and it is that 5-part opener when you talk about it being complete, like that. If you watch those episodes back to back, that is a movie. That feels
that's
like
exactly what I did.
And it is an animated movie, that, isn't it? It tells a complete story, and it feels like it's the first part
like
of what is going to be a trilogy of and it's there's no fat in it either. It's 100 minutes, but everything that's in there is needed.
Oh yeah, definitely. There's nothing. I mean, and obviously because they've done it as 5 episodes, they kind of mix their genres a bit. So you've got a historical one, you've got an action one, then you've got a heist. So they do all this stuff, but actually, look, none of this would be out of place if you put it, as I say, you could put this as the first part of a trilogy.
I mean, there have been attempts to get this made in live action.
Right.
Nothing's taken off, unfortunately. But you could literally just translate that, couldn't you?
Yeah, and I mean, like they were comics as well in the mid-aughts, I think, as well. Marvel, I think, took them on. Yeah. Not seen any of them. I've only read that. But say it's the sort of property you could build a world out of, you could build a franchise out of, and you could incorporate into a wider universe if you wanted to as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure I want a live action version of it, just because you'd have CG gargoyles, which I'd rather see somebody in makeup. However, I would definitely take a reboot of this show or a continuation of this show, and I would definitely take a feature-length animated movie.
Yeah,
like I'm not sure I want a live action movie.
No, I mean, I think the problem is, like, CG is fine, and we've seen a lot. CG over the last decade and a half has come on so far that it's very nearly. I'm not going to say perfect, because there always going to be problems with it. But you look at stuff like Avatar. You look at the mocap they use in things like Lord of the Rings, and they use in Star Wars. When it's done very well, but it costs a lot of money. When you put 7/8 of your principal cast have to be mocap or have to be CGI, you're not getting that characterization from it.
No,
unless you go down the route of turning Mark Ruffalo into the Hulk, where you get every facial tick and every movement. But then, if you're going to do that, just get a fucking actor in.
Now I kind of want Mark Ruffalo as Goliath in a live action interpretation.
I would take Mark Ruffalo.
Now you've put that out there.
I would take that, actually, but you get what I mean. It's not going to be as effective, especially the amount of effort and the amount of money you have to go into making that size of cast.
Yeah,
because when you look at Lord of the Rings, for example, you get the army of orcs, you stick them all in prosthetics, you get half a dozen who are near the camera who you're going to come back to time and time again. The rest of the 100,000 people, it doesn't matter if they look like shit, because they're never going to be in focus.
Yeah.
If you've got your principal cast, or 5, 6, or 7/8 of your principal cast are these CGI characters, you're either going to say, right, we need a whole CGI product, or you're going to try and shoehorn it into a live action thing a la Roger Rabbit, and it's not going to fucking work.
I think what you end up with is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the movie.
Yes.
Probably.
Yeah.
But with CG instead of puppetry, so it's even worse.
Yeah.
But I think that's what you end up with. Whereas, like, just fucking animate it. Disney Plus, just do it. I hope more people are watching this on Disney Plus, so they get the fucking message. I know a lot of people made a fuss about it when it was launched. Everybody was very excited that this was on Disney Plus. So hopefully somebody in the company is getting that message.
Well, I mean,
because I want more of this.
Well, that's you want more of it. But I mean, even if they don't do more of it, even if they just say, right, we're going to do it justice, we're going to clean it up, we're going to remaster it and issue it the way that people want to see it and that we want people to see it. Because at the end of the day, this is a product they've made, they spent money on.
Yeah.
It's in their interest to keep it, to preserve it and keep it looking as good as they can. Now, they've gone through so much effort. I know they did with the features. They've gone back and remastered everything, and also they've preserved the archives and stuff like that. There's no reason why they can't do it here.
No, I think part of the problem, certainly with Disney anyway, is like, yes, the animated features get remastered every 10 years or so, because then they put a new edition out. You get the Diamond Edition, then you get the Platinum Edition, then you get, and so idiots like me go out and rebuy them because they remaster them, chuck half a dozen new special features on them, and actually in some cases I think they actively make them worse when they scrub them as well. Because in some places, you, especially some of the older films, you start to lose the detail in the line work when it gets scrubbed. You look at the remasters of things like Snow White and Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty, those early films, like you really do start to lose detail because they're too artificially clean. But obviously they re-scrub those and re-release them because right up until very recently, there was a market for that because they're getting 20 quid out of me every time they re-release it on DVD or Blu-ray. But we don't live in that world anymore now. So remastering this to put it on Disney Plus doesn't get them anything, does it? That's the problem. It doesn't get new subscribers because the original version is already, and they're really bad at that. That is one thing. I think there is a tremendous amount of content on Disney Plus, and a lot of it is really, really high quality. But they are not good at remastering. Like they just dump it on there. They will just take it and dump it on there.
And I think the problem with that, and obviously it's their business model, and as you say, it's not getting them new subscribers. They're not going to get anybody new in by doing that. But actually, if they was going to say that we're preserving our archive, we're going to remaster it, because once we've remastered it, we've digitized it, it's going to be at least a generation before we have to do it again. So we could fix acceleration, we could fix the grain, just sharpen up the image and make it look the way it should look, make it look the way it looked when it was drawn. That would be enough. But as you say, the amount of content they have it's a huge amount of effort, it's a huge outlay, it's a huge cost. I appreciate that, and it's not going to get them as much as it would by, say, redoing Fantasia or redoing Fox and the Hound, or even some of some of their lesser known fucking products, let alone the big ones. You get into that, and all of a sudden, people go, "Oh fuck, I want to see what they've done with that. I'm gonna, I'll spend my $6.99 or whatever it is this month. I'll do that. I might, if it comes down to it, and actually, well, Netflix is getting kind of boring this month because I've seen everything on it. I'm gonna take a month off and go to Disney. I might never come back, and there's always a chance that might work. So I appreciate, there's not a great deal of incentive for them to do it, but I think for the quality of product they've got, I think they do it a massive disservice by not looking after it.
I agree. I mean, I think there's probably a collector's market out there for it. Like if this was to have a really nice collector's edition Blu-ray box set,
all over
70, 80 quid for all 3 seasons, I'll have it. I'll bite your hand off for it.
Done.
But
take my money.
Yeah, it's whether higher up in the company recognizes what they've got here at the moment.
Let's be fair, if all they're making off is 160 quid off us, they're not going to bother, are they?
And let's be fair, Chapek doesn't know his fucking arsehole from his elbow anyway, let alone know what he's got his fucking hands on. So God knows what's going to happen to the Disney company in the next fucking 10 years, let alone remastering Gargoyles. So, who knows? But I would definitely be up for a remaster of it. I would be up for a reboot of it if they want to do that. I'd even more so be up, especially since it's an animated show, just for a continuation of the original series. But I want more, and as I say, I just hope that whatever metrics they're keeping tabs on with Disney Plus, I hope it's showing that there is interest in this show. And if you've listened to us talk for an hour and a half and you haven't watched it yet, then I don't know why you've listened to us for an hour and a half, but go and watch it and discover what is this absolute fucking gem, and just be part of that metric so that someone somewhere can see how good this is. And see that people are interested, and then do something with it, and tell your fucking friends to watch it as well. Like, if they don't want to watch it, just tell them to put it on and leave it for an hour. It doesn't fucking matter. Just fucking put it on the telly and fuck
put it
off.
On. Let it play. Put it on in the morning. Let it play while you go to work. It'll cycle through the whole lot by the time you come back. Job done.
Yeah, you'll be fine. Happy days. And then we all get more Gargoyles. So the campaign starts here.
I mean, I've not really got much else to say on it. I mean, I came to this show not knowing a lot about it. I had vague memories of it as being on. I'd seen bits of it. I would, had it not been for the fact that other people came home and got in my way, I'd have still been watching this now from Sunday afternoon. I'd have just sat there. No, fuck work, fuck the rest of it. I'd have been sat there all day. I mean, I fucking loved this show. I didn't expect to. I came to it thinking, all right, okay, I'll pass an hour or two. And fuck me, I've got like 60 episodes left to watch. So that's me for the week.
Yeah, I mean, I knew I would like it because I knew of it. I'd seen it before, and I kind of knew that maybe I haven't quite just given it the fair shake that it needed. I kind of liked what I seen, and I knew it was really in sync with me and my choices and what I like, and so I knew there was something in this for me. Even so, it still absolutely floored me. I didn't expect it to take me quite the way that it did, and so quickly as well. You say we've not got much more to say about it, and we've talked for an hour and a half now. I could go all night. I could enthuse about the show. Like we haven't properly touched on the cast. We haven't touched on the fact that actually it's got about half the cast of Star Trek: The Next Generation in it.
Yeah.
Like there's just so we haven't really even talked about the quality of the animation. We've talked a lot about the production design and the colors. It's just everything about this show is. It's certainly the first season anyway, is just as top draw as entertainment gets. And I'm not talking about animated entertainment or cartoons or anything. I'm talking about any other show that you care to put this up against. This is top draw TV show. This is like it's up there with Batman. It's shoulder to shoulder with Batman the animated series in terms of animated shows. And yeah, I would definitely put it up there in my probably my top 10 shows of all time, having watched this now. It's that fucking good. And I did not expect that. I expected from this going, yeah, it was a really good show. I really enjoyed it. And maybe I'll get around to watching more as we've done with several shows that we've looked at. I didn't expect to find something that I would be this fundamentally attached to.
Yeah.
Within 5 episodes. It absolutely bowled me over.
Yeah. I'd agree with that.
And I know I'm going to rewatch this many, many times now. This is going to be a favorite of mine. This is going to be a new obsession. Yeah. So, yeah, I cannot recommend it enough. If you saw it originally and you loved it, then I'm sure I don't need to tell you to go back and watch it. I don't think anybody that loves this show loves it a little bit. I think this is a show that people really take to their heart. So if you're one of those people, then God bless you. We're part of your club now. If you're not and you haven't really exposed yourself to this yet, or maybe you've only watched bits and you're unsure of it, then if we haven't convinced you already, then please just give those first 5 episodes a chance. And I fail to see how anybody can dislike those first 5 episodes, because if you like filmed entertainment in any way, shape or form, if you like popular film, then this is just one of the best examples of screen storytelling I think you will find. It's got everything and it executes it all really, really well. So yeah, just go and give it a go. You will not be sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've come to this slightly cold and it's absolutely taken us aback. But if you have recollections of this, if you loved the show or if you hated the show, I can't imagine why you would. But we'd love to know what people's perspective on it, what people's memories are. So please get in touch on Twitter at SMPDpod. You can go to our website, ddpodcast.net, where you can pick up our previous episodes and other shows as well. On Facebook and YouTube with the Double Down Podcast Network, wherever you get your podcasts from, be it iTunes, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Play, etc. Like, share, subscribe, leave us a message, and we'll get back to you as best we can. But until next time.
See you later.